You are listening to the Keep the Weight Off podcast with Dr. Angela, episode number 112.
Welcome to the Keep the Weight Off podcast, where we bust all the dieting myths and discover not just how to lose weight, but more importantly, how to keep it off. We go way beyond the food, and we use science and psychology to give you strategies that work. And now your host, Dr. Angela Zechmann.
All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome to the podcast this week. I hope you all enjoyed our podcast last week. This week is going to be a continuation of our understanding how it is that processed foods are produced in very much the same way as nicotine products, and how they are actually just as addictive, if not more so, than nicotine products. And so I want to continue on. I am basing this podcast and the one before, and podcast number 111, on a paper that was done by Dr. Ashley Gearhardt and her colleague, Dr. D. Felice Antonio. And what they did in this paper, which was published in the journal Addiction very recently, is they took all of the established criteria for addiction and applied them to processed foods. And they looked at the research to find out if it's really true that processed food can be addictive. Okay. So what I'm going to do, we talked last time about how there's a similar manufacturing for nicotine products and processed foods. This time, we're going to talk about what are the addiction criteria. How is it that processed food meets these addiction criteria? Okay. Cool, Marshall?
Yes, I'm ready. Let's do this.
All right, let's go. Okay, so what are the four criteria? The four criteria that I mentioned last week are the ability to cause highly compulsive use, mood-altering effects. Number 2 is mood-altering effects. Number 3 is that use becomes reinforcing. And those were the 3 criteria that were used to establish the addictive nature of nicotine back in 1988. Since 1988, there has been a 4th criteria added to determine if something is addictive or not, and that is the ability to cause strong urges and cravings. Okay, so we're going to look at each one of those 4 criteria and see if highly processed foods meet those criteria. Okay, the first criteria, compulsive use. What's the definition of compulsive use? Drug-seeking and drug-taking behavior that is driven by strong, often irresistible urges. It can persist despite a desire to quit or even repeated attempts to quit. What do you think, Marshall? Does highly processed food meet these criteria?
I 100% would say yes. And I have a little story to tell you.
Okay.
If you want to hear it, that happened to me when it was 2 weeks ago now.
2 weeks ago. Okay.
I didn't tell you about this.
Okay.
But I did talk to Gabi and Tracy about it. So
now Gabi and Tracy are our medical assistants at the office. So yeah.
Yeah. So you know that I had been off of the sugar and flour. I did the detox, and been doing really, really well. And I don't know what happened. I went to Safeway this one morning. And I don't know. I just moseyed on over to the cake aisle, the cake section in Albertsons, because I don't know. I don't know why I did this. And there was this piece of carrot cake, and I don't even eat carrot cake. I don't know. It just looked really pretty, and so I just couldn't think of anything else to buy. I don't know why I did this. So weird. And I bought this carrot cake this morning, right? And I brought it to work. It's just mindlessly did this. And I hid it behind the monitor at my desk. And
oh my gosh.
So all that morning I took little bites off of it, and it was tasted so, because I hadn't had any sugar for a while. Yeah. And it tasted so good that every morning for a week and a half, I went to Albertsons and bought a piece of this carrot cake for a week and a half, Angela.
Oh my gosh.
And hid it behind the desk. You didn't see it, right? Because you had been working, because that was the week that you were working for Michelle. So you were there every single day, and I was hiding it back there, and I could not stop myself from getting it. It was like, it was talking to me every morning, and I would think about it when I got off work, and I would just be thinking about going and getting it the next morning. And I don't know why it was like I was addicted to it. And it was, and I talked to Gabi and Tracy, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, I don't know what is going on with me. Because they saw it, they found it. They're like, what is going on? Why do you have this carrot cake behind your desk? Like, what is wrong with you? And they were like, we're going to have to do an intervention on you. And so, because they saw me doing it, and they're like, something's wrong with you, Marshall, because they know that I don't do this. And so they had to talk with me, and they helped me get off the carrot cake.
Oh my
gosh. So, I know, it was so weird. I don't know what happened. I don't know why I did it, but they, and I just had to go cold turkey on it. I couldn't go to Albertsons. I couldn't go to Albertsons anymore in the morning. I just had to not go there, because anytime I would go there, it would remind me of that carrot cake. So I had to just quit going there for like 2 weeks. So,
you might want to not go there for a long time.
What a crazy experience. So I don't know what possessed me to do it, but that is how addicting these, this sugar, these processed foods can be, because I was doing so well, and I don't know if like I was stressed or something, or, possibly, just something was going on, in my life, but I just wanted to like tell you guys like how much how addicting that these processed foods can be, and they can just get you from, I don't know, from just a weak moment. And like I said, I have a really sensitive brain to these. I have to be very, very careful. And I don't even know what I was thinking. It was like I was just like in a fog, and I just did it every day for a week and a half. So so I just wanted to share that with you.
Well, I have kind of a similar situation. This occurred back in 2014 when my father was really, really sick with prostate cancer, and that was super, super stressful. And I would come home from the airport after visiting him, and I would go to Winco, which is right off the freeway, and I would just go to their bakery and get the sugar cookies with a frosting on them. And I'd just buy a box of those, and I would just eat that on my way home. And it was like, by the time I got home, practically the whole package was gone. If there was still anything left, I would throw it in the trash can at the front of the driveway. But it was like, now sometimes even every time I go past Winco, I have those memories. So like this is the type of stuff that happens with these highly processed food products, So for any of you listening, if you have ever experienced this, your brain is normal. You don't have an abnormal brain. You have a brain that is responding in the way these foods were designed to make your brain respond. Okay? So just be aware of that. Highly addictive, highly triggering, highly processed. So compulsive use is the first criteria. And I just want to say, like, how many of us struggle to stick with our eating plans because we have these strong, irresistible urges to eat highly processed foods or drink beverages containing sugar. Like, how many people struggle with binge eating these highly processed foods, even though they want to stop? How many people with diabetes and other health issues related to processed food want to stop it and can't, right? It's super interesting because animal studies show that rodents, meaning rats and mice, will risk getting shocked in order to get industrially produced cheesecake or pound cake or frosting or chocolate, even when their standard chow is right there. They don't want that. They want the processed stuff. Rodents will even tolerate shock to get to chow with corn syrup added to it, even more than when meth is used as the reinforcer. Interesting, huh? So for rats, corn syrup is more addictive than meth. So I say we've met the first criteria of addictive potential. Okay? Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
This definitely makes sense to me. More so now than probably any time in my life. I understand.
Yeah,
this.
exactly. You get this. Yeah.
Yeah.
The second criteria is what's called psychoactivity. This means that the substance produces short-term changes in mood, the result of effects in the brain. So these substances can cause you to actually feel better by increasing dopamine in the brain. So research shows that both tobacco products and highly processed foods will increase dopamine by about the same amount. But we should note that their effect is much more subtle than intoxicating substances such as alcohol or heroin or something like that. Still, it does increase dopamine by 150 to 200 times normal. And food works just as well, even when the taste buds are bypassed, which I find interesting. So like if they just put it in your stomach and you absorb it directly from your stomach without any taste bud action, you will still get a dopamine hit 150 to 200 times normal from processed food.
Now, I think, okay, so I believe, like looking back, I think for me, I think taste is what draws me in. I think that that's what happens with me more than anything is I miss the taste of sugar. And so even though like I'm doing really well and I you know, and everything is going fine, I don't think that it really takes like a stressor or anything bad. I think I just miss the taste of it. And a lot of times like that's all it takes is just, I miss the taste. And so, so that is a huge pull. And that's just something that can take me down. So I don't know if that happens to anybody else, just missing the taste of it. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. So, but I guess the point here of this particular criteria, the psychoactivity, is that, you know what, both nicotine and processed foods do produce excessive dopamine, but they're not as addictive as the really strong psychoactive mood-altering drugs like heroin, right? So, but they do definitely improve your mood temporarily. So we want to keep that in mind. I mean, that's why they call them comfort foods, for God's sake. They help your mood. So, okay, let's go on to the third criterion, and that is that the substance is reinforcing. So what does that mean? That means that it's sufficiently rewarding to maintain self-administration. So what was it? Carrot cake behind the desk? Yes. Self-administering carrot cake from behind the desk. So research shows that processed food is highly reinforcing, even more so than cigarettes. And people will work really hard to get to them if needed. So here's what Drs. Gearhardt and DeFelice Antonio say. Daily exposure to highly processed foods, for example, candy, cookies, chips, carrot cake, appears to sensitize the reinforcing value of these foods, as indicated by an increased willingness to work to gain access to highly processed foods over time. And larger portions, get this, larger portions of highly processed food leads to greater sensitization. So in other words, the bigger your portions are, then the more sensitized you get to it. In contrast, daily exposure to minimally processed foods, such as vegetables and fruits, does not sensitize reinforcement and may even reduce it. So you could have broccoli behind your desk and eat that all day long, but you're not going to feel that addictive pull towards it.
Right.
So when we're exposed to it more, we have a harder time staying away from it. And this is, of course, what the food industry wants and why these foods are so heavily advertised. And I just want to say that personally, I've had a really hard time these last weeks when I have been with my family, because these foods are everywhere in my family's house. And it's freaky how many times I had to stop myself from just grabbing some candy or cookies. And that's because they're so reinforcing. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
If it's there, and if there's a lot there, it's very reinforcing. Okay. So that's the first three criteria. So processed food meets all of the criteria for addiction that was laid out for nicotine in the 1988 Surgeon General's report. But now there's a fourth criterion, which was added after the 1988 Surgeon General's report, is that there are strong, irresistible urges for the substance in question. So when experiencing a strong urge or craving for a high calorie food may actually be adaptive if you are like starving, if you haven't eaten for a long time and you're calorie depleted. Craving for highly processed foods often occurs even when we're not physically hungry. And the most commonly craved foods are all common highly processed foods like chocolate or pizza or sweet things. The other thing is that often there are cues that are paired with food that cause more intense cravings. So this happens with tobacco too. Certain times of day, certain experiences, certain cues that when experienced, if you are experiencing a cue, cause cravings and urges for highly processed foods. So of the 4 criteria, processed food meets all of them. And some criteria, like causing compulsive use despite a desire to quit, being reinforcing, and causing cravings are all very high on the scale, even compared to some drugs that are more intoxicating, like alcohol or heroin. Does that make sense?
This is starting to make a lot more sense now that we're talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like our experience, I was going to say your experience, but our experience having dealt with these highly processed foods and watching our brains do crazy stuff is all sort of a normal brain response to what's in this stuff. Okay. So we also have to recognize that while the industrial production of tobacco products and highly processed foods are still legal, tobacco products can no longer be advertised like they used to be, and they can certainly not be advertised to children. In contrast, most children obtain over 60% of their calorie intake from processed foods, and most are much higher than that. So again, this is not a character flaw or a willpower defect. This is what is driving the obesity epidemic. The fact that we have such highly addictive, highly processed foods that are what our children are eating mostly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love when we talk about this kind of stuff because, I always, so instead of beating myself up, now I learned so much more about, how addictive these foods are. And when I do have, a slip or, a splurge or whatever, I learned so much more about why and how to get past this and, get back on track. And I just today, I just learned so much more about what just happened, happened last week. And there's a lot more to it than just one thing or another. It isn't just about taste. It's, it's a lot more than that. And so the light bulbs are starting to go off. And so now I understand a lot more about what happened. So thank you.
Exactly. So you're welcome. So I say this so often, and I'm going to say it again. If you're struggling with highly processed foods, you are not alone. So just please don't beat yourself up. Just get the help you need. Okay? We're here for you. Just join us in Empowered Weight Loss at journeybeyondweightloss.com/yes. And we can help you get off processed foods and help you stay off processed foods. And when you slip, which you will, we've got your back. Okay? So join us in Empowered Weight Loss. We will see you on the inside. Do not beat yourself up about this. Recognize that you have a huge multi-billion-dollar food and beverage industry that is doing their best to get you addicted and keep you addicted from a very young age. And there's nothing wrong with you other than that you have been, what's the word I want to use? Your brain has been deliberately hijacked by the food industry. And when I use the term, your brain has been hijacked, that comes from Dr. David Kessler. That's not my words. Those are his words. He's the former head of the Food and Drug Administration. And he is the one who took down the tobacco industry. And he is hard at work trying to take down the food industry now, too. So this is really a public health issue, and I'm a big public health person. And I just want all of you to know that it's time for us to get wise as a society and not let the food industry do this to us, because so many people are struggling. Again, if you want help, join us in Empowered Weight Loss at journeybeyondweightloss.com/yes. And we will be there welcoming you with open arms.
And one way you can help get this information out is please rate and review this podcast and share it.
Yes. Share the podcast on your social media platforms that you have so that other people can hear this too. Because I think the more people that understand just how addictive these foods are and how dangerous they are, then the better for everyone. Okay. That's all for this week. Take care and have a great week, everyone. Bye now.
Goodbye, everybody.
Hey, if you really want to lose weight and keep it off for good, your next step is to sign up for Dr. Angela's free weight loss course, where you're going to learn everything you need to get started on your weight loss journey the right way. Just head over to journeybeyondweightloss.com/free course to sign up. Also, it would be awesome if you could take a few moments and write a review on iTunes. Thanks, and we'll see you in Journey Beyond Weight Loss.